Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. We are so glad that you're here. My name is Katie Gideon, and I am dialing in from Tulsa, Oklahoma. It is so great to see all of you in the chat, especially all of our returning socialers. Hello. We're always glad to see all of you, but also want to shout out to some of our new socialers. So if you have not been to a weekly setup social before, you can participate in as much or as little in this social as you want, and that goes with the chat as well. But if you want to participate in the chat, just double check that it is set to everyone. The default is host and panelists as we talk about all of the quirky things that Zoom can do. That is just so everybody can see it. Host and panelist just comes to myself and my amazing co-host, who you'll see in the chat, Maya. If you need anything, we are there to certainly help and enjoy. And you'll see her in the chat. And I do June. I'm a big fan of June. I am a end of June birthday baby, June 29th, and Maya's is the 18th. So it's like a whole flurry of June birthdays. So even I got excited of all the like just fun June things because at the end of the day, because it's my birthday month, it gets put on a cute little pedestal. So I found these lovely June reminders and I thought they were so appropriate. And so we'll talk kind of all through the summer things and all those. So if I'm a little too summery for you, I will say I'm sorry, but not sorry because I love summer. And so we get to dive into all of that. But we're going to work on our week two setup in June. And we are glad that you're here to do all of that. And just some community guidelines. Please be kind and courteous to yourself and others. No promotions or spam. Respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit repetitive product and accessory questions. So we like talking about our products. We know that you all use a lot of fun products outside as well, and that's apps, books. We all have all these other wonderful special interests, and we love to have those conversations there. We just ask that it doesn't detract from the larger social of why we're here. So if we start going down too many rabbit holes, may need to rein it in back to the setup pages. And then, as always, why Maya and I have some information, we will most likely need to redirect your customer care inquiries to our team. Hello at silkensonder.com, as well as Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. And so what I like about that is, as we already said, maybe I maybe I am too much for you at Saturday morning. Maybe my music will be too much for you. Maybe the slides are going to be too much for you, and that is okay. That is why you get to participate this in any way that you want, but do not let it be to the point of triggering or detrimental. I know that I have read in the Silk and Sonder app as well as kind of my own thoughts. The month's theme is a little, can be a little challenging to connect with. And we know we are just on the verge of what I consider the true hot part of summer. So it's like I get all the thoughts and feelings and emotions that come around it. But we are glad that you're here exactly as you are. And that's one of those you can be as positive as you want. You can kind of sit. Maybe you didn't have a great week. Maybe you had a rough day. Maybe you're just not feeling great. Maybe you just haven't really woken up yet. So we bring in all of those things. But at the same time, if you need to kind of step away, not participate in a certain page, move on to a different one, color instead of all those other things, we ask that you definitely do so because we are all here together to collectively celebrate, but also, provide some strength, extra thoughts, love, and care around what is going on in each of our unique lives. So, month's theme of flow. And this, even Maya and I were chatting. I was like, I just definitely have it in my head, a very like cliche definition of flow. And I always think, because I lived in Southern California for 12 years, I always think of like just they were always yoga people. And so please, if you're a yoga person, I am trying not to offend you. But it was always just that, you could never pin him down for anything. It was this weird, definitely like the go with the flow. Oh, I'm just here to embrace this. It's a lovely day. I have no responsibilities and all of these. And it's one of those, while I like to relate, I came across this quote with from Jane, Krasinski. And it was like you can have a plan, but you have to be flexible. Every day is unpredictable, and you just kind of have to go with the flow sometimes. So my kind of perfectionist controlling mentality appreciated this because it's like I do like to consider myself going with the flow. And I think it's more of I've just turned it into almost a methodical, kind of almost rigid approach to have like the flexibility and the adaptability where it was like, sure, I had this one plan, but I also had the like plan B, plan C, plan D, probably going into the plan Zs as you go. So it's like I'm always thinking of those things so that when someone's like, ooh, yes, let's do this, or yeah, let's go do something else, it's like, okay, I think I can go with that flow. But really and truly, I've already packed like all of the possible scenarios in my head. And I think while that is something that works for me and how I know I can respond to kind of a more flow state, I realize that that's also probably setting unnecessary expectations. And that is where the other quote kind of comes in when life gets intense, maybe dial down the pressure and flow through. And I was like, I feel like that is a great combination because I do think it's more of like, because you think pressure builds up, and a lot of that can be self-induced pressure, larger pressure, family pressure, just living life type pressures. And so when things have extreme pressure, something's going to blow in order for it to flow in the right way. Because I'm one of those kind of, I am a big fan of the water metaphors. So I liked this idea of maybe we can control kind of how we approach the flow thought process to really work with how it's our style. I am definitely not one of those like throw all caution to the wind. I always have feel like I have to have some sort of backup plan, some sort of other idea, some sort of out. And that's everything from even like planning a fun event with friends where it's like, oh, we'll meet up at this restaurant and we'll do this. It's like cool. Can we maybe make a reservation en route? Can we just call and see if there's people there that we can do it instead of showing up with like eight people and being like, we're just here for drinks. And it's like packed solid. And then you have to like do the walk of shame outside and those type of things. So I feel like there's an element of doing it. But I think for me, finding that flow state is still adding those kind of parameters that I like to operate in. But still embracing a little bit more of an unplanned or not having such rigid expectations that you can't enjoy it. So that's kind of my thoughts. And so we're going to work on our week 2 flow mind map. We're going to do our rosebud thorn exercise, and then we're going to do those weekly setup pages. So please join us in your journal for the monthly mind map. And so this can be a blank page in your journal or maybe a blank section. We know people will use the scratch pad, the expense tracker, the quote page, or even team back page. And so it'll be into 4 different quadrants. And like I said, we talked about week 1 last week. We're going to do week 2 this week. And then so it'll be 4 weeks of those 4 different areas. And it's an opportunity for us to dive a little bit more into it. I will admit I wrote this questions for this month, and I did take your all's feedback from the last time I wrote them, which was shorten them, and we appreciate your lyrical style, but it's too much. So we simplified them a bit more, and Maya made a really great graphic to go with it. And so we're going to kind of dive into that, and as we go into it, I'll talk about kind of thoughts and feelings around it. But what we always say is you do have the whole week to work on these. And these are just options that we like to have that are unique to the weekly setup for that opening. So if you miss one, or if you show up a little bit late, or it just doesn't really speak to you, you can always do something else. This isn't homework. These aren't due. You don't have to do all 4. But we always include the previous week. So the first week, it was just kind of understanding a current flow, figuring out our baseline, if you will. And so if your energy moved like water, where would it naturally want to flow at the moment? And that, again, you can turn it into kind of any perspective. So now we're looking at a way to kind of interact with flow. And so week 2, potentially breaking from the flow. So it's if I stopped swimming against the current for one day, what would I allow myself to experience instead? So that's the kind of baseline question. But even then, when I was in my kind of, I was in just a slightly weird headspace when I was working on my answers, and I was telling Maya about this. So I thought of some other things. So that's what's on this slide. So the first one is if I stopped swimming against the current for one day, what would I allow myself to experience instead? And here's some kind of follow-on questions with that. Would you have a chance to look around? Could you discover that it is gentler than you actually believed? And would you be able to find some bends in our proverbial river. And then what I also appreciated was another thought that maybe the stopping is kind of because I think that's what a word that I got hung up on was stopping. And so I wanted to lean a little bit more into that. So could that be coming from a place of control or fear? Yes, guilty. But then talking about the seasonality, as it gets hotter, people just aren't as jazzed. And I know we have a lot of our fall girlies, so maybe it is leaning into a summer ween component. And so it was looking at maybe if stopping was the word that was really kind of hitting you. But then I also looked at kind of other ideas of taking a break, because I think that was also the stopping and the taking a break, because to me, that could just it hit some darker thoughts that didn't that I didn't really think was necessary. So what it could look like is obviously a rest. It could just be a break from emotions or showing a little bit more self-compassion. So leading into that, adding too much pressure with those first quotes and those things. So that was kind of my thought on if I stopped swimming. And for me, it was a lot of like adding unnecessary expectations. And so kind of a little bit of can I find something new and not seeing as am I keeping up with the flow because I'm just trying to stay on track with what I expected, what people expect. So for me, if I just took a small breather, I shouldn't see that as falling behind. So those were kind of my thoughts on that. So I am going to stop talking. I am going to play some music, but certainly would love to feel your thoughts on either the previous week, this idea of a current flow, a break from the flow, and then as you can see, we're going to look at an around and kind of an end because I was inspired a little bit by the going on a bear hunt, which I thought was a really good metaphor for kind of when you come across some sort of something, a situation that you can't work out. So that was kind of can't go over it, can't go under it, got to go through it. So that was where I kind of got some of those ideas. But would love to hear your thoughts on flow, your thoughts on these responses, maybe even just kind of the thoughts around it. Like you said, the stopped part really stuck out of my mind to the point of slightly uncomfortable. So I really wanted to figure out a way to retool that word or that thought so that I could come up with what I consider a more reasonable answer for a break. So we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I appreciated just reading kind of all of the thoughts around this. And that like I said, I wrote these obviously a bit ago. And then even when I went down to, because I do like to sit and try and answer them kind of again and a little bit more. And I did have a tricky time with it. So I already talked to the person who wrote it and gave that type of feedback in that kind of sense where I was like, what was I thinking? But I appreciate some of the thoughts that were given. I think it was Pam and um, yeah, Pam was the one that mentioned that that flow doesn't necessarily make sense. And I thought that was actually a really good kind of point to make because I consider myself a bit of a creature of habit. So I would consider being in like my habits are very much a flow. My daily routine, I try to keep pretty much in a flow, hence kind of the routine. But am I doing too much of that in that really nice, comfortable flow state that if I just took a minute to take a look and be like, ooh, maybe I need to change some of these things, maybe I think I'm flowing and moving through, but really it's turning a little bit stagnant. And that can be something as simple as, change up the gym routine, walk a different direction, try and push yourself a little bit more, try something a little bit new. So I appreciated that was not something that I had initially thought of, but I did find that actually far more relatable than the path I went down. So appreciate all of the, like you said, honesty around that because what is great about the mind map is it can be something that can certainly be helpful, or it can something that'll kind of help you think or pivot through, or if you think of a particular scenario and you're like, well, that doesn't quite work, maybe it'll help you find something else. Or as I said, don't force what doesn't flow. You're allowed to take space and revisit things later. So maybe that is not what is here there. And so something else you can kind of work on. But thank you. And I appreciate all of the responses there. Because like I said, it's an interesting thought, but even I was stuck a little bit in the literal sense of if I stop, if I break, and and that similar kind of like quit mentality, which I feel like that's not mine either. So thank you, everybody. So now we're going to move to our rose bud thorn exercise. This is another opportunity to reflect on kind of the current state of where you are as you're kind of considering what, thoughts, feelings, and emotions you're going to want to flow through to the next week, or if you're just going to leave them in the last week, this is going to be on page 36. And so I like this because it is an opportunity to kind of have a moment for all of the roses, which are the good things, the highlights, something that made you happy, something that made you smile, something that went well, something that was positive. And it gives you also another opportunity to kind of find something that you're looking forward to in a bud merging opportunity, something that is there, something that is on the horizon, something to kind of look forward to. But then also acknowledge kind of in that same column, the thorn. And that's the challenge, something that didn't go so well, something that was maybe a little bit negative, something that just didn't go your way. And I have kind of pivoted the thorn for me now a little bit more. What is something that has taken up too much time, energy, and effort in your idea? Because I didn't want to fixate too much on the negativity, which is what I like to do. And I'm trying to remove those opportunities for me to fixate on those things. And so it can be something like it can be big, it can be little, it can be everything in between. But it is really nice to see the roller coaster of the week that you had, because then this is your opportunity to give it its moment, decide what you're going to take from it, what you're going to move with through the next week, or again, if you're going to wipe the slate clean, which we have the wonderful opportunity to do so, and leave those in the previous week. So for me, the highlights, I love the Tony Awards. I am a big fan. I thought Pink did a fantastic job. So I loved watching those. They make me happy. I get ridiculously emotional for it, and I can never explain it. To the point, my parents were laughing at me when I was watching it because it was like someone gives a heartfelt speech and I'm crying along with them, even though I've never met them. And same thing with kind of getting excited about those big, large scales. I'm also a World Cup fan. That's been a recent thing. So always in awe of those things. So certainly enjoy those larger gatherings to support what someone would consider, the lighter things in life. Emerging opportunity, for me, I just moved back from the UK, so all of my stuff will be here on Monday, and I'm excited because I've been living about 2 suitcases for far too long. So, really looking forward to that, but also slightly hesitant because it traveled a really long way and sat in a lot of probably strange places. So, seeing what is intact, what is not, and maybe what we picked up along the way. And then the challenge, I feel like that the challenge, it can be a rosebud and the thorn this week, actually, because I had to get a new cell phone, which I appreciate the opportunity to be able to go and get a new cell phone, but it's so time consuming. I spent probably 3 hours just at home transferring everything over, then another couple hours just re-logging into everything, and then sitting at the cell phone place. You just sit and you wait. It's a new version of purgatory, I think. But I have a new phone. It is working. It is making me happy, but I keep finding the gremlins that I had sorted out in the previous phone. So like I said, that can be probably a rosebud thorn for the whole thing. But as always, we love to celebrate with all of you your roses, get excited for those upcoming buds, and just maybe send a little extra love, thought, and prayers for the thorn. And we will see you soon. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Appreciate just a little snapshot. As even I say, that's what is kind of part of the Silk and Sonder concept with the Sonder that everyone is living such wonderfully vivid lives outside of just yours. And so it's always a privilege, I think, with these socials is to be able to see all these wonderful check-ins and kind of just experience those roses, those buds and thorns with all of you because I feel like there's that intentional effort to kind of select something to kind of answer these questions. And so giving them, again, their moment. And now we get to decide what we want to do with either the actual activity or maybe the feelings, the emotions, the mentality, anything that kind of comes along with them that we can carry into our week next week. So we are going to now move into those weekly planning pages, which is great. And so I always like to frame this a little bit of each week is potentially going to be different than the previous week. Or maybe you are in a really good flow state, so it's going to be a little bit of a copy and paste. But I think always a great way to start this is to ask yourself, what do you need? So when we're on page 40 and 41 in your June journal, it's asking yourself, what do you need? What do you need from this week? Because maybe you need every single section filled out in kind of painstaking detail. Maybe you need something completely repurposed because you're going to have a slightly unconventional week. Or maybe you need a break from some of these things. Especially, I'm one of those when I go on vacations or when we've got a ton of birthdays this month in my family. So a lot of my pages look a little bit different just because of all the like added things that kind of randomly get put in with it being summer. So just keep that in mind. There's no right or wrong way to set up your journal. Excuse me. And just because it maybe worked today, you find yourself kind of Wednesday, Thursday of this week going, what was I thinking? You can definitely break away from perfection and make those adjustments as you need to. So we're going to start at the top of page 40 with this week I want to feel. And I like to frame this a little bit as the how do I want to feel this time next week? I'm one of those goal-oriented types. And so I appreciate kind of as I'm experienced the highs and lows and everything in between of the week, if I can come back as like a focus point, what do I need to change? What do I need to alter? How can I pivot to kind of create this feeling that I had in mind sitting here? And so sometimes that looks like as a leaning into the theme of kind of reaching a flow state. Maybe it is your word of the year. Maybe it is a handful of a word bank, if you will, because you have to have a different feeling or a different vibe each day. Maybe less of something, more of something. Maybe it is a doodle. We are fans of stickers here. They want to fulfill their sticker destiny of being stuck, and we know that pictures are worth 1,000 words. So why not use some of those stickers? Because maybe that's where the motivation is. Maybe that's the definition. Maybe that is the idea there. So, if you would like to share in the chat, I love the intentional optimism of figuring out how we want to feel this week, and we will check in right after that. I'll play a quick song, and we'll see you soon. Okay, so now that we kind of have an idea of how we want to feel, we can now frame, and this is kind of how I approach my pages, we can now frame the weekly major three goals and the to-do list to kind of help support that feeling and emotion and that drive. But again, that's just kind of how my brain works. And there are a couple other ways to approach that. So maybe it is a category, a mind, body, soul goal. I like the alliterations because that's a fun way to trick yourself. So maybe it's a revisit, restore, relax. For me, it tends to be the kind of three larger mental and emotional reminders that I need to give myself. Right now, I have just been not feeling great. And I think a lot of it is because I'm not drinking enough water, because now I have options on those things. So hydration tends to now be the top one of my things, and like real hydration, not the caffeinated kind. So it's those type of things. And kind of just, I've had to micromanage my days a little bit more. So it's also just like remembering to respond to things, because I'm in a weird transition period. So maybe it's leaning into the frog, the fun, and the fierce. So if there's particular things that you need to do that are maybe slightly separate than the to-do list. But I do like how these two sections, the weekly to-dos and the weekly major three goals, can work well together. So maybe you want to categorize your major goals and then bring in the to-do list that will support those major goals. And then we always love the gamification of it, or even just a recategorizing of maybe all the things you want to create, all the things you want to consume, all the ways you're going to comfort, and then the same thing with how you're going to commune. So those are the four C's. And then maybe it is just the quotes or the affirmations or something that's going to help you reach kind of that flow state. Or maybe it is just because there are three options, doesn't mean you always have to have three. Maybe it's two. Maybe it's a home and a work, or a home and a activity, because we know a lot of people's summers look a little bit different, especially if you have school age children or around school age children, college age children. Those we know that's where I always like the idea of what do you need this week. And then moving into the weekly to-dos, I'm a big fan of celebrating the small wins. I've gotten more into that. That was a tool that my therapist always recommended, was write down one good thing you did each day. And so I liked the small wins matter because I feel like sometimes those get lost, especially in the summer and kind of all of the excitement. I feel like it all just turns into like a good, warm, gooey mess. So it all just kind of blends together in a blob. But again, maybe it's a traditional to-do list, maybe it's a to-do list. Like I said, when I have to kind of micromanage my week a bit, I tend to lean on the Eisenhower matrix, which is the do, decide, delegate, or delete. I don't delete anything, I usually just delay it. So playing still with the alliteration, but something that's more realistic for my kind of life and existence. Maybe it's turning it into the gamification of the to-do bingo. Maybe you have a to-do that you need to get to done every single day, so you include those there kind of as a schedule planner. Maybe it's a don't do this, do this instead. Or maybe a lot of it is weekly don'ts. Maybe it's less of the scrolling, less of kind of those things. So maybe that is kind of where you're leaning into your to-dos for the week. And maybe it's just a to be. Like I said, I like the not to do, because maybe this is a good time, especially with the middle of the year, with it being the 6th month out of the 12. And we do have Meha hosting the mid-year reset. So maybe this is an opportunity to look at it from a not to do perspective, or building out those work to dos, the personal to dos under the want and need category, which I think is always a good way to prioritize or reshuffle your to-do list. So I will go back through these slides. I'm going to go off camera, but if you ever need me to go back to a slide, please let me know and we will make those corrections as we go. And we'll see you soon. So we are going to stay on page 40, and now we are going to overlay what I consider kind of an added bonus to the week, which are the habits and activities. And I think it's more of I've just kind of pivoted with my thought of how I approach the habit and activity section. For a long time, I treated it as these are the things that I absolutely have to do, and I've got to do all of these things, and I got a little overwhelmed with it. And then I had kind of a realization that I could use the weekly habit tracker and the monthly habit tracker a little bit better together. So on my monthly habit tracker, those are the things that I absolutely have to do every single day. I just kind of fit them in as we go. But I carry over three of those things, which is move, read, and journal into my weekly habits and activity tracker every week. And that is because I now want to set aside time for these are the things that I need to do. And these become also more of what I want to do because if I move, I walk, and I read, that is my way to recharge, re-energize, all of those things that I just necessary for me to be a lovely, pleasant person. And so I use this to now set aside that time to allocate for those things that I'm going to do every single day that I want to do every single day. And so sometimes it's going to look a little bit different. As I said, my move definition will usually change. I injured my shoulder last week, so PT is now involved. So that's a component of moving. And same thing with, throwing in different classes that I can take versus what I would say where I previously, my moving, a lot of it was just kind of walking to and fro because I was I didn't have a car where I was previously living. So those are kind of the thoughts that I take with it. But you can certainly use these as kind of a goal orientation thing. Maybe it is a set goal that you want to do. Maybe again, leaning into breaking with the flow, stopping with the flow a little bit. So maybe readjusting some of those habits and activities. Maybe this is where the mental and emotional reminders are. And I think that's really a great idea. And then I like the fact that it's a format for the weekdays and the weekends because sometimes those are going to look a little bit different. Sometimes that's where you have a plan. Sometimes you just go a little bit more with the flow. And as always, just because there are 5 lines there does not mean you need to use all five. Maybe you're just focusing on three things. Maybe it's one thing. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's those stickers that are there because you have put these otherwhere. Maybe you just want to lean into the monthly tracker. You have a lot of options here. And then I have found, I don't know if it's just because that's how I took the time to curate my social media, but now everything is in like bingo board format and I love it. But now I'm almost overwhelmed with the like bingo board options, the themes. I love a good theme. But the one on the right, I really enjoy this Look and Sonder ones. Casey, who does a lot of the social media management, she's done an amazing job with those. And I tried to kind of coordinate some of the questions that I had for the mind map with this so that you're not having as redundant of things. I liked the June Curiosity Challenge in one of the previous socials. We were kind of reminiscing about some of the themes that we liked, and wonder kind of kept coming up, and play and enchantment, kind of the more funner, lighter themes that I feel like we all genuinely enjoy. So I thought the Curiosity Challenge was really kind of fun and interesting. And then you all know I love my iconography because I am one of those people that I have tried to now include kind of magic of ordinary days. So I've repurposed my expense tracker for kind of a bucket list. So now I include that type of bucket list item where it's just kind of adding something fun, something special, or even just the things that you're already routinely doing, like the ability to go outside and read my book. That makes it magical. That makes it a little bit different, a little bit more fun. So that's kind of how I've been enjoying it, a little bit of a kind of a gamification, but also just kind of celebrating the things that you're already doing that could kind of make your day seem a little bit special. And then, so that's why I like all of these ideas. So I'm going to give you some time to work on this, but I always like to hear what kind of habits and activities are you working on? Are you the type of person that still sticks to your habits and activities even when you're on vacation? Or is this where we take the break for those pages? But we will see you soon as we finish up page 40, and then we will flip over to 41, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. So now we are going to switch over to page 41. And I like to combine this page just for me personally. This is what I call the B side. It is one that I don't always diligently use, but I love the templates that are there because I feel like they serve a purpose when I really need them. So that is why I've kind of worked through the thought process of what do you need each week. So the meal plan, it can be used exactly as listed. It is something that you can plan for, or it is something that you can turn into kind of a meal tracker if you're on a specific healthcare or a healthcare journey. And that can be symptoms, or if you're on some sort of kind of, like I said, well-being. Maybe this is where you put the one good thing. Maybe this is where the to-do list lives. Like the idea of the moment of Zen doodles. I know a lot of people have really been leaning into their creativity recently. With this is more of a meal plan for the soul. So that's where your reflection, your daily ritual responses, the affirmations from the Silk and Sonder app can live. Even just kind of reflections on whatever you read or kind of taking time out. So I feel like I have loved seeing that kind of pivot into kind of a creative sense or kind of an educational thought process with it to be used in that regard. Um, Maybe again, the highlights, or even just I like it for packing, especially when I go on trips. I've really started to lean into use it so it doesn't help me, prevents me from overpacking, which I've really enjoyed. The Mind Body Health Plan is another one of those that it can be planned, or it can be something that you do in real time to kind of celebrate how you are taking care of your mind and your body and your overall health. Maybe it's leaning into those alliterations. Maybe it's leaning into the National Day of. We know that those can be really fun, and those can always be a great theme for anything from dinner to how you're going to approach today to even what you're going to wear the day. I love the elegant simplicity of the I feel, I need. I think this is a really good mental check-in that can be done at any point during the day, because I also feel like it's an opportunity to kind of take a moment, take a pause, and then pivot and adjust as necessary. Um, Maybe this is where those bucket list ideas live, things that you're excited about, or reading log, leaning into some of those hobbies. Excuse me, or maybe the what you're not going to be doing, taking kind of again at the break from the flow, leaning into the seven different types of rest. And then again, I just like these because I think they're really great because I feel like self-love, maybe it just means these things. And same thing with the 6 lessons for June. Don't worry, I will come back to these just because I feel like those are always really great reminders to go with the Mind Body Health Plan. And we do have the shopping list, which can go hand in hand with that meal plan. Maybe it is all those things that you need to support your meal plan. Maybe this is where all of those extra items go if you're using it a packing list. But we also love a good bingo, as we already said, seeing a lot of birthdays. Maybe it is a birthday bingo board. Maybe it is a milestone bingo board. Maybe it's leaning into the summer fun or the summer ween for our autumnal girlies. Maybe that's kind of more what it is, leaning into the hobbies or even just a social check-in. I will always say the summer is just as busy as the holidays, and so people can feel a little lonely, a little isolated, especially if it's so hot. So maybe this is a good opportunity to do those kind of social check-ins, or leaning into again some of the glimmer bingos, overall self-care bingos, or even just a different planner or something fun with what I am watching, reading, or listening to. So I'm going to go back through all these slides, play one more song, and we will come back together for the close of this social. So I'll see you soon. Thank you. And we do have that very last one at the bottom, which is the I am loving. So I feel like this is a great opportunity in the social, especially if you want to share just what you are currently loving, because I always like to see what everyone is working on, doing, enjoying, because it always finds inspiration there for me. But with that said, we have reached the end. As always, we love to continue the conversation in the Silk and Sonder app. We would certainly enjoy if you want to share your weekly pages, especially if you have inspiration. A lot of people find those can be super helpful. We obviously use them for examples in our socials, so we are always looking for anything that you all are working on. And then, as I mentioned earlier in the social, and Maya will put the link in there as well, the mid-year reset. This is a free event that's going to be on the 16th, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And I know with these free events, especially with this Meha hosting, if you cannot make it in real time, they will send you the link, but I do believe there'll be a time restriction to how long the link will be available. I don't know if this one will go directly to our YouTube page, but just keep that in mind. And if you have any questions, please reach out to hello@silkandsonder.com about this, as we always want to help because this is a great participation. And then this is a copy of my playlist. I will include that a link in the chat. Maya also included the YouTube link because all of our socials are recorded. So if you want another facilitator's perspective, because switching roles tomorrow, another facilitator will be doing our Sunday weekly setup. It's always great to get their different perspectives, especially maybe on the mind map, because I know maybe I didn't quite help with the kind of thoughts on it. So it's always great to see those, come back and revisit those. But I am so excited that you joined us. I know we are going to have an amazing rest of the week. We are going to have an amazing rest of our day. And I am looking forward to continuing to celebrate the month of June with each and every one of you. The last song I'm going to play ties kind of back to the Tony Awards. Like I said, I'm a fan. Joshua Henry won, and I was so excited for him. So if you haven't listened to he's done a lot. I highly recommend listening to him, but I'm going to play one of his songs because, like I said, it makes me happy, makes me smile. But I hope to see you at a future event real soon. Bye.
The sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun. Just thinking about tomorrow clears away the cobwebs and the sorrow till there's none. When I'm stuck with a day that's gray and lonely, I just think about you